They told the world Chernobyl was dead, a sealed tomb of concrete, steel, and silence, a place where nothing should ever move again. But that was before the sensors started screaming. Deep beneath the ruins of Reactor Zone 305/2, something changed. Temperature readings spiked without warning. Radiation patterns shifted like something was breathing underground. And then came the most terrifying report of all. Chernobyl was burning again. Not with flames, not with explosions, but with something far worse. Something invisible.
To understand this mystery, we have to go back. April 26th, 1986. Chernobyl's Reactor 4 exploded in one of the worst nuclear disasters in human history. The world changed instantly. Entire cities were evacuated. Forests died without sound. And a giant concrete structure, the sarcophagus, was built to imprison the remains of the reactor. For decades, scientists believed the worst was over. The fire was out. The danger was contained. But Chernobyl never really stopped being dangerous. Because what they sealed wasn't just destruction. It was an ongoing reaction. Years later, instruments placed around the reactor began to detect unusual behavior. At first, it was ignored. Small heat fluctuations beneath the core, tiny radiation spikes that appeared and disappeared. Nothing that seemed dangerous. But science has a rule. When something repeats, it is never random. And in Chernobyl, the signals began repeating. Every few weeks, the same pattern appeared. Heat rising from deep underground, then disappearing, then returning, stronger. It was as if the ruins were waking up. Then came the name that never appeared in official reports. Room 305/2. Some engineers claimed it was a maintenance code. Others said it was a mapping error. But those who worked closest to the reactor had a different reaction. They refused to talk about it. One former worker allegedly described it as a space that feels like it shouldn't exist in our world. No official blueprint confirms it. No public document explains it. But thermal scans show something strange in that exact region. A hollow structure beneath solid containment layers. When the media reported Chernobyl reignited, scientists rushed to correct the misunderstanding. There is no fire, but there is heat. And that heat comes from something far more unsettling. Inside the reactor remains, there are materials still undergoing slow nuclear decay. But more importantly, there are chemical reactions between melted fuel, water, and buried structural elements. This creates something called corium, a lava-like substance that can stay hot for decades. And in rare conditions, it can shift, move, and release heat.
One of the most disturbing findings came from seismic sensors. They recorded micro vibrations beneath Reactor 4. Not earthquakes, not structural collapse. Something rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. At first, researchers refused to interpret it emotionally, but the pattern was undeniable. Pulse
pause. Pulse again. And every time the pulse returned, temperature increased slightly, as if the reactor wasn't dead, just waiting. Then came the final recorded message from the monitoring team. They were stationed near the restricted zone boundary. At 03:14 a.m., they reported a sudden spike in radiation levels near the coordinates labeled 305/2. One of them said, "It's getting hotter. Too fast." Then another voice, "That's impossible. Nothing should be active there." And then the transmission cut. But the cameras didn't stop immediately. They kept recording for 12 more seconds. In those 12 seconds, the footage shows something no official report has ever explained. A movement deep inside the ruins. Not fire, not collapse. Something rising. And just before the video ends, one of the thermal sensors detects a sudden spike from inside room 30530. Higher than anything recorded since 1986. And then the signal disappears. So the question is no longer why Chernobyl reignited. The real question is, what is still moving inside room 305/2?